Last night, something scared the shit out of me. I don't know how to put it any simpler. Now, I pride myself on being a seasoned vet in all things horror, but let me tell you, when you are witnessing fear firsthand, you really find out who you are. Let me give you some quick info. A couple of months ago, I moved to a new apartment. My old apartment was a hotel in the late 1800s. I moved out of there because I couldn't stand it anymore. The place was a shithole. I lived on the third floor and that creaky place used to moan at night. The floor squeaked, the windows howled, and you could hear everything all the time. But there was another reason I left. I left because I started to hear someone call my name in the middle of the night. At first it sounded like a woman, but after the third time it happened, I wasn't so sure. It was always in the middle of the night when I heard it. It always woke me up. Whoever it was sounded scared, like they were calling to me for help. I slept with my door closed and the voice would come from the other room. Now, this happened 5 times in total. Other than that, no other weird shit went on. Half the time I convinced myself that I had just been dreaming. Until the last week I was there. It was on a Wednesday when it happened. Most of my stuff was in boxes and shit. My bedroom stacked with piles of assorted cardboard and packaging tape. I climbed into bed around midnight, absolutely exhausted, and fell asleep instantly. 2 hours later, I woke up with a jolt as a pile of boxes fell over by the bedroom closet. My heart was racing and I sat up in the dark, freaking out. I was about to get up when I heard it. It sounded like scraping or panting, like something was sucking air through ruined lungs, and it sounded like it was coming from inside my closet. I sat there paralyzed in fear, heart absolutely crashing into my chest. The sound went on for about 20 seconds and then stopped. I immediately turned the light on and practically ripped the closet door open. There was no one there, but it wasn't empty. On the floor rested a single black rock. It fit in the palm of my hand, and when I went to pick it up, it was hot to the touch. It almost burned me. And it smelled like sulfur. Well, I freaked out pretty hard and got out of there. I spent the remaining 3 days at a friend's house until the move. I told everybody about the weird incident, but they mostly just laughed it off. They didn't think I was serious. I got out of that terrible building and successfully transferred my belongings to my new pad. It's a much nicer place, albeit much smaller. I now live on a ground floor studio apartment that looks out onto an empty field. There's not much around the small complex, meaning we're pretty isolated out here. I've been here 2 months now and the weird shit that happened in my old place had pretty much been removed from my memory. That is, until last night. Last night, something woke me up. I managed to catch it on video this time. I feel like this is the start of something awful. I'll keep everyone posted. Hey guys, I'm not really sure if this is the right place to post, but something's going on. You guys give good advice, so I'm hoping you could help me. I'm not a good writer or anything, just a long-time lurker. I live in San Francisco on the 3rd floor of an old Victorian. There are 34 steps to the top. I live on the street side, 2 roommates. A little while back, me and my roommate, Rich, were walking back to the house from a bar a few blocks away. We'd watched the Niners lose on Sunday and we were feeling a little depressed and drunk. We went to the bar for the Monday night game, which was even worse. I hate Odell Beckham Jr. and I lost fantasy that week because of him. We were sort of drinking ourselves more blue, and by the time we stepped out it was already darkish and pretty wet out. We were 2 blocks away from my house and we decided to turn off Height. Height's a busy, miserable place when you are sad and the street kids are like magnets to misery. Besides, it was late on Sunday and there were never any girls out on Sunday, not even in San Francisco. Upper Height, if you know the area, around Page and Claytonish, right at the stop sign there, we lit a cig and I was kinda swimming when I caught some movement. At the top of the building, there's a silhouette of a man and I can't really make out his face or clothes or anything. It's not like it's all that creepy. All the scary stories I ever read are like, oh, he had no eyes, or maybe that was my imagination, but it wasn't like that. It was just a tall, kinda skinny guy standing on the roof of the unit. If you're from like Montana or something, it's not that odd for us. People are always going up on their roofs, usually with those lawn chairs and coolers, and usually when it's sunny, but it's San Francisco, you could take what you can get. I was kind of watching him out of the corner of my eye as Richie talked about whether he'd fire Chip. Rich is always talking like that. I was only half paying attention, then I kinda noticed what the guy was doing, or what he looked like he was doing, which was just staring straight into a big window across the street. The lights were on and the curtains were open, but I couldn't see inside it from the spot on the street, but he could. It gave me the creeps, man. I nudged Rich and he kinda looks up and of course assumes the grossest thing right away. Gross, look at that lurker. Guess that's one way to get your jollies, he says to me and does one of those half laughs you do through your nose when you're laughing or crying. He's always saying stuff like that, like he's some old timer from the 40s. It's funny at first, but man does it get annoying. Anyway, we were looking up at this guy and finally Rich just yells, "Jump!" I don't know why, but it pissed me off. I just wanted to go, to be honest. And then the man turns. And not like in these stories, it's not all slow or anything. More quick than that. More like he was caught doing exactly what Rich said he was. But he looks at us for what felt like a long time. As our spirits are just burning to the filter, Rich is kind of laughing, but you could tell he's getting uneasy. Then the man on the roof turns and really quickly heads to the stairwell. We don't know if he's scrambling down the stairs to us or retreating back to his room, or whatever, but I started getting worked up about it. For whatever reason, we decided to jet. We've been in scraps before, especially Rich. He's kind of one of those long-suffering types, where everything gets under his skin, but he never really talks about it. Then one day, bam, he'll just knock someone's head in. We've gotten kicked out of more bars, and I usually wasn't doing anything at all. Anyway, something about the whole situation just felt bad, and you never know with that kind of guy. We sorta jogged back to our place, and Rich said it was because it felt good to jog after smoking, which everyone knows is total crap, but I wasn't complaining. So, we got home and Rich sorta plops on my couch and grabs a bottle of High Life from the mini. He always takes my beers, but sometimes I like having someone around and every once in a while he brings a few home. He looks at the can for a second and then bites the cap off and mumbles about calling in sick. He's still got that cap in between his teeth, but then he straight up spits it on my floor. I said pick it up, but he kinda looked in its direction and then starts drinking the beer and some of it's spilling down his chin, and that gets me. I don't mean to make Rich seem like a bad guy. He's smart and all, but he gets like that. So you can kinda get why I started sending out some texts to a few girls. I was a little too drunk to really be feeling up for anything, but I got a bite from this one just a few minutes later. She said she was moving soon, so if I wanted to come over, this was the last chance. So I told Rich I was heading out. He just nodded, and that made me real pissed. I guess it just seems like I should have just told him to go to his own room, but I was on the line with this girl now and had to go back into the cold, and I'm too drunk for her anyway, so I know I'm blowing it. I don't know, it's hard to explain. As I'm leaving, I could hear him pulling another High Life from the fridge. Nobody drinks like Rich, I'm telling you. So I get to her house and her room is really small, like it's just a bed basically, pushed up against a door that has to stay shut. It's so cramped that her nightstand is at the foot of the bed, but it smells nice like warm clothes and she's really into it. She makes me look through all the photos she sent me, and they are not like PG, that's for sure. Then when we get to the last one, she takes my phone, deletes literally the whole thread, pictures and all, and says, "Time for the real thing." I guess she didn't want me showing them when she left. Of course, once we get going, I can't finish and she thinks it's her fault. Why do girls always do that? I want to say something nice, but I'm still pretty drunk and embarrassed, so we both end up kinda quiet. We're just laying there in the dark and I'm touching her hair when my phone buzzes like a million times in a row. Every time it goes off, I could feel her tense up and you know she thinks it's another girl. Problem is, I'm thinking it probably is too. By the 10th time, she gets so pissed that she kinda yells, "Can you please turn that fucking thing off?" I sure can pick 'em. Early the next morning, she says it's time for me to go, and you could just tell she doesn't want a second try or anything. So I'm getting dressed and you probably know where this is going. Every text is from Rich, except two, and they said not tonight and fuck off. Those are the ones I noticed first, but once I read Rich's I got scared. I can't tell what half of them mean, but I could tell something's wrong. Here the text. I can't make heads or tails of all of them, but I know something's wrong. I go straight back and he's not home. The bed's unmade, but he doesn't answer his phone. My first thought is, no problem, right? He probably made it to work after all. Maybe. I count the beers. He's taken a fourth, but it's barely been touched. I dump the extra in the bathroom sink, get ready for my shift, try his phone again, then head to work. It's a whole 8-hour shift, but I'm checking my phone every once in a while and shoot him a couple of texts. Nothing. I work at one of those cheesy electronic stores, and everybody buys that stuff online nowadays, so I try and make up an excuse to duck out early, but my manager gets a hard-on for saying no. It's starting to get dark in the house and I'm officially freaking out. I send a few texts, but nobody's heard from him. Not that they would, he's not exactly well liked. He mostly just hangs around me and drinks my beers. I sit on the couch and pick up one of the empty bottles. I'm kind of weighing it in my hand and letting the phone ring in my other, when I hear this kind of muffled noise above me. In college, we had a squirrel get under the tiles of our roof. For about a week, I could hear it thrashing back and forth above my bedroom. I thought it might be rabied, so we didn't help it. Then it got silent for about a few days, and I went up there to throw out the body before it stank up the whole house. I wrenched the panel loose, but it wasn't dead. It didn't try to escape. It didn't even blink. It just shook and watched with its black, wet eyes. It must have been pregnant, because there were little bones everywhere. I had to put the poor thing out of its misery right then and there. I don't like watching things suffer, and I could tell its life wasn't worth living. I only mention all that because that muffled sound reminds me of the animal, and it gives me a deep, deep chill down my spine. I'm not a little scared now. I'm straight terrified. When the phone goes to voicemail, the noise stops. I call it twice more, and my heart is actually pounding so hard it's making my eyes water. I left the house fast, and now I'm writing this in a panic. It's gotta be his phone, right? I don't know what to do. Something's on the roof. My mother was a night owl, and it wasn't common for us to do our errands sometimes very late at night. She'd buckle me and my younger brother up in the car and take us shopping. It was no big deal. So one night, when she took us to the neighborhood grocery store, it took a 12-year-old me a little while to realize this night was different. We'd been shopping for a little while when a man approached us and asked her some innocent questions about pasta or something. I remember him being thin, with a comb-over and a cheap jacket, but he had the freakiest stare that I think I'd ever seen. His eyes never left my mother or myself. He'd just shift back and forth like a predator. She answered briefly and moved on, but there he was again in the next aisle, asked another question but added to it by asking our names. This was a long time ago, so I don't remember his exact questions, but by the 4th or 5th time he approached us, his questions got increasingly personal. My mother, who was normally very stoic and strong, just freaked. She abandoned our nearly full cart, grabbed my brother and I by the hands tightly, and began a near jog to the exit. Once outside, she broke out into a full run, as best she could with two completely confused and questioning kids attached to her. She got us to the car, and as soon as we were locked in, I saw her take the first full breath I'd seen her take in a long time. I asked if it was about the guy in the store, and she answered, "Yes, he's following us." "Did we get away?" my little brother asked from the back seat. This was clearly an adventure for him, a break from the norm, but I was terrified. I'd never seen my mom so shaken. Then I heard it. Oh my God. She said it in such a flat and broken way, I felt my heart jump into my throat. The guy was 2 aisles over, getting in his car, his eyes never leaving my mother and our car. I started screaming for my mom to leave. She pulled out quickly, and I watched with horror as the guy followed, pulling out right behind us. She kept us safe, but drove as quickly as she could, trying to lose him. It was useless. We live in a highly residential area, and she pulled up and down streets, took wrong turns, but he stayed behind us the entire time. She'd gone completely quiet, and I was so scared I did the same. This was way before we had cell phones, and it was clear she wasn't going to lose this guy. So she did something that was both incredibly brave, but also could have turned out so very wrong. She glanced at me and said, "Stay quiet, don't move." We obeyed. A moment later, she pulled into some dark, long, random driveway and quickly turned the car lights out. We froze and waited. Seconds later, the creeper's car appeared at the end of the driveway and stopped. We held our breath, waiting to see what this psycho was going to do. But my mom's bet had paid off. He was clearly satisfied that he now knew where we lived, and he could do God knows what he wanted to do to us when he was better prepared. He slowly pulled away and his car disappeared down the street and around a corner. We all just sat there in silence for a second. Then my mom calmly turned the lights back on and drove us home. My stepdad came with us grocery shopping during the day, of course, for the next 2 months, but we never saw the creepy guy or his car again. It chills me to think, what if that guy had gotten out of his car? What if he'd attacked us on that dark driveway? What about those poor people who actually lived in that house? Did they have to deal with this nut job, or did he realize he'd been tricked and go away? Nothing can be done now. But I know how close we came to my mother having to fight for us with her life that night. I just thought I'd throw in a little creepy event that happened to me recently. It's 100% true, no bullshit. Well, I'd been going through a time where I'd felt really depressed and stressed out. Due to my anxiety and involuntary smiling that has overtaken my life within the past year, my social life has died. I can't even interact with people because I get stared at like some sort of freak or alien when I'm out and about in public. Just imagine, everywhere you go, people staring at you like some crazy psycho because there is a permanent smile plastered on your face. Yes, I go through this every day of my life, and it has driven me over the edge. But anyway, the reason I mention this is because it has caused me to do things I would have never thought to do before I started dealing with this issue. And one of those things is meeting up with prostitutes. Yeah, I know it's sad, but I'm a young man, and since I can't even look at a woman without them looking at me like I'm crazy, what else can I do? I've been looking for hookups with prostitutes to cope with the depression that has been weighing heavily on me. Most of the prostitutes I've been to have been nice and understanding. I have had a few bad experiences with some, but this one particular experience still stands out to me. It happened on a weekend night. I had been searching online for a prostitute, a fairly decent looking one, and came across a cute blonde woman. She looked okay, had a nice smile in her pictures that she posted on her ad, and she stated that she was new to the small city. I live in the state of Florida, so I called her up and she sounded nice. She claimed that she was available for service at the moment, so I got in the car and drove to the motel she was waiting for me at. It wasn't too far from my house. It was only a 10 to 15 minute drive. I parked my car and forgot to mention that it's very late at night, around 11:30, so no one is outside. The parking lot to the motel is quiet, and there's no one around walking. I get out of my car and head to the room that she said she was in. I'll just say it was room 203. So I get to room 203 and knock on the door. I look over and notice a man, possibly mid-30s, wearing a hat standing by his room a few doors down. He was smoking a cigarette and was watching me as I waited for the woman to let me in. I didn't want to be seen using a prostitute, so I felt a little embarrassed because I was certain that he knew what I was there for. So after what felt like a minute, the door popped open, and standing there was a woman that I'd seen on the escort website. Phew, I thought. At least she looked like the pictures from her post. So I step inside really quickly but cautious and wait for her to close the door before I reach into my pocket to give her the $60 I had. It was only going to be a quick hookup and I'd be out. At least, that's what I thought. I hand her the $60 and watched as she placed the money on the little table sitting by the door. She told me to sit down on the bed and I did as I was told. I observed the room and then her as she approached me. I didn't find her body to be at all attractive, but her face convinced me to just go through with it. She plops down on the bed beside the bed I'm sitting on, as the room has 2 beds. She pulls out her phone, and instead of going straight into the servicing, she proceeds to make small talk with me as she is clicking away on her phone. As she's talking, I immediately notice that this woman has some kind of mental issue. I wasn't sure what it was, but something wasn't right about this woman. All of the other prostitutes I'd visited, I'd walked in, did what was done, and left. This particular woman wasn't having that, as it came clear to me after I asked her as nice as possible if I could just go ahead and get the quickie done and over with. She said, "Oh, you're cute. You don't think I'm just going to let you leave that quick?" Although it sort of, I guess, flattered me that she thought I was cute, I still felt uncomfortable, and immediately began thinking about leaving anyway. I told her that I had somewhere to go, and as I got up, she stood up and told me to sit down. Okay, I'm thinking, I'm starting to really get freaked out. What's wrong with this woman? I sit back down, I guess because I kind of felt bad for her. Though I know she was a bit strange, I thought maybe she needs someone to talk to. So I listened to her telling me stories about her ex-boyfriend abusing her and how she nearly killed him one day out of anger, but decided not to and left him. She tells me that she keeps a gun for safety, just in case someone tries to rob her or harm her. As she's talking, I'm constantly thinking about the time and how late it's getting. I just wanted to leave and go home. But as this woman is talking, I swear, I begin to hear a sound of something moving in the bathroom. From where I was sitting, I couldn't see into the bathroom, but the door was open and I could see that the light was off. It kind of sounded like a person moving in there, so I get freaked out and stand up. Okay, I really gotta go, I'm sorry. I try and convince her. She gets up and says, okay. Surprisingly, she hands me back my $60 from the table and she has this big smile on her face. I ask her what's going on, and just in that moment, she begins freaking out. Her facial expression changes into a scared and shocked look as she grabs my arm and points toward the restroom. I still can't see into the restroom from where we're standing, but she's pointing to it and gasping, "I think someone else is in here." I'm staring hard at her as my heart is beating fast, and I'm really getting creeped out. I try and reach for the latch to unlock the door of the room, but she pulls me and screams, "I think someone is in there. I think it's an undercover cop." I'm getting confused and more frightened by the second. I definitely could hear someone moving in the bathroom, and the first thing that crosses my mind is that I ran into a police sting. I'm only 20 years old and my family back at home didn't know that I was meeting a prostitute, of course, so I begin thinking I'm about to come face to face with a cop in a few seconds. The lady starts saying, "My friend is in the bathroom. I think he's an undercover cop." Now let me make this very clear. The total of shock in this woman's face as she's talking is real. She's talking as if she's unaware that there's another person in the room with us. I'm still standing there scared and ask her, "Who's in there?" She looks at me and cries, "I don't know. I think it could be an undercover cop spying on us." The fear in her eyes are real. I can now hear clearly that someone is indeed in that bathroom. I'm wondering why this woman went from saying that it was an undercover cop to it was her friend who could be an undercover cop to she doesn't know who's in there. She finally lets go of my arm and dashes to the bathroom, and as she approaches it, the door slams shut. She's now standing at the door and looking at me and moving her lips with no sound coming from them, as if she doesn't want whoever is in the restroom to hear her. Now I know for sure something is wrong with this woman, but she starts walking back to me and has her hand out, asking for the money back. I hurry and turn around to unlatch the door, and somehow got the door open fast enough before she reached me. I darted out and hurried down the stairs. As I am rushing to my car, I hear her crying and the sound of her slamming the door shut. I get in my car and crank it, pulling out of the motel as fast as I can. As I'm leaving, I look back at her room and see that the room light had been shut off. I didn't know why she'd cut her lights off, but I didn't care. I was glad to be out of that room. It was around 1 in the morning now, and I made a quick stop to McDonald's and then home. I didn't know what that woman was dealing with or what exactly was wrong with her, but I was glad to be away from her. I had so many questions running through my mind, but the main one was, who was in that bathroom? Was it a cop or her friend? I don't know, but I was never going to ever go back to see that woman again. Strangely, after a few weeks or so of checking to see if she posted any new ads, there were no more. Prostitutes usually post every day for new clients, or at least every few days, but that woman hasn't posted any more since the night I left. Hey guys, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. So guys, I hope everybody has a great Friday, and I hope everybody has a great weekend as well. And I hope everybody is having a great time playing the new Final Fantasy game. I haven't touched it yet because I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed. Oh my god, the Ezio collection, by the way. Yeah, I forgot how addicting and good Assassin's Creed could be. Yes, I am taking a jab at the other games that came out before it. Well, then again, Assassin's Creed 3 wasn't too bad. I liked Black Flag, and then after that it kind of just, yeah, down the shitter. But, anyways guys, thank you all for watching, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.